What's happening, man?
Not much, man. They,
So we talked the other day about the idea of you wanted to sort of stick your toes in the water and find out a little bit about web dev. A couple of years ago, um, I went to a coding boot camp, and now I'm working as a software engineer. And you think you might want to go down that path as well? Is that right?
yeah, a couple years ago, I went to grad school in musical theater writing, and that's illegal now. Can't do that.
Oh, you
Can't
could
do that
write
anymore.
musicals. You just can't
You
produce
know,
them.
yeah, you just can't make money off of them.
Yeah. Well, someday.
That's the illegal part. Yeah,
Um, in any case,
but yeah.
so we talked the other day, and I suggested some things to take a look at,
Hmm.
including a course on Udemy, and but there's other places, whatever. But you went through the HTML parts of it, and you said you had some questions.
Yeah, just some, and I have a feeling that these questions are going to be like, almost all of them will be like, you won't understand it now, but it will make sense later.
Maybe.
Because I feel like that's how a lot of my process has been going. It's like
Right.
you go through, you completely fail to write some code, and then you look at why you failed it, and then you can succeed after that.
Okay.
Yeah, but right now my only questions are why are B and I no longer used, but instead have become strong and EM.
Right. So I think what the idea is, they're getting away from elements that prescribe a certain look. In other words, the idea is you want to show this text strongly, like you want to put you want to put emphasis on it, or you want to show it strong, whatever that means. But for you, for a particular website, giving a text emphasis might mean changing the color to blue or changing the font to something else. It doesn't necessarily mean italics anymore, or it doesn't have to. By default, it still is italic. Like if you just, if we just put some text in here and we give it, hello, and then we look at that. Oops, we look at that. Let me see if I can bring this up. Do do do. Documents, code, Twitch. HTML. Okay, I'm going to open this. Open Chrome. So we have this little document. Why does Windows do that? Okay. Why did that happen? Please move this window from the shared application. What the crap is happening? Oh, it's all the way up here. Oh, for freaking. Anyway, I'll just make a little window here. Please move this. Oh, do you even see this on the shared screen?
So on the shared screen, I just see it's like a grayed out table, but I'm also
You
watching
see
on.
but you can see the code, right?
Yeah, I can see the code. I just can't see the browser. It just looks like a gray block.
Oh, you can't see the browser, but you can see it on Twitch, though, right?
Yep.
All right. Although I know a fair amount about web development, I know very little about Twitch. Okay, so we're just going to leave it as this. I don't know why it says please move away from the shared application. Anyway, that's really annoying. So we have this hello, and by default it's italic, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
could, and the same thing is true of emphasis. I think it'll appear as italic. Ugh. Um, if I reload this, I don't think that this it'll change at all. Yeah, but but yeah, so they got away from stuff like this, HTML elements that described how it's supposed to look. So you
Is
can have
that
a paragraph, but a paragraph doesn't prescribe what font you're going to use, how big the font is, any of that kind of stuff. So there used to be a lot more of that in HTML, where you'd be like font size 3 and stuff like that, or I don't know. Yeah, HTML used to be a lot more prescriptive. What they're trying to get it more towards, the idea, I think, is the idea that the HTML should describe the content, not necessarily how it looks.
Okay. So is that going to be something later in CSS where CSS ascribes what emphasis or strong is?
Yeah. So, man, I wish I could. So I'm sharing the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? I'm not sharing my screen technically. I am sharing. Let me stop this for a sec. Screen share. Why doesn't it allow me to share the whole screen? This is really annoying. To get tripped up on this basic stuff. Okay. I wonder if let's just go back to this. If there is a extension, it's like browser or something. Browser. So I'm using VS Code. Open in default browser. No. Browser preview. A real browser preview inside your editor that you can debug. That's what I want. Okay. So I'm using VS Code, and it's just a basic text editor, but it has all these plugins that you can do that are really helpful for web dev. Actually, it's really great for, I don't know if I talked to you about this, but it's really great. There's a really great way to write screenplays in VS Code. Totally free. You don't have to buy anything fancy. VS Code is free. The plugins to write it are free. So, okay, so browser preview. Let's close that. See if I can do this. Nope. It's going to take me a while to adjust to this. Control P. Browser. Browser preview. Open active file in preview. Nope, that didn't work.
Do you use VS Code at work too?
Yeah. People use various. The two most popular things, I think, are VS Code, and then for the real hardcore people, they use Vim. All right, so what is this? Code editing refined. I don't need this thing, whatever this is. Why do I have two previews? There we go. Okay, cool. So now I have this over here and what it's going to make, right? So if we had a let's make something simple. An H1 for header. A header. So if we reload this over here, we've got a header, great. And then we're going to have a paragraph. A lot of times we use lorem ipsum, which is like text stand-in. We don't really know what we want. So there's different websites that generate lorem ipsum for you. Here we go. We'll do one paragraph. Copy. Paste. And save that. Reload. Okay, cool. So we have a header and we have a paragraph after it, right? And let's say that we wanted to change. So with basic HTML, you don't get any fancy styling. It just comes out looking like, a web page from the early 90s, basically. But if you want to add style to it, you have to add CSS. Now, you could add style right in here. Like if I say style equals let's see, what's something really dumb? Oh wait, how about color? Color's easy. Color red. And we save that, and we save that. Oops, save that. And now the color, the text is red, right? So that's something you could do. But then if you wanted all your paragraphs to be red, then you would have to add this style tag to every single paragraph, and that's not very efficient. So there's a way that you can add a style to all the paragraphs in your document. But what you want to do, let's put it in here first to start. I think we can do it up here. We can add a style tag up here, and then inside this, we say that for our p tags, we want color red. Oops, I keep hitting the wrong keys. I'm used to my Mac layout, and I'm doing this on a PC for the streaming. So now we have color red, and if we want, let's change it to something else to make sure we're doing this right. And now we have color blue. So this would be the basics of CSS. Would be you create a style tag, and inside it you add these styles. We could change H1 to be, let's say, like, I don't know what the font size is currently, but let's make the font size extra big, 5M. Oh, I gotta save this first. And there, the header's extra big. So there's an awful lot to learn about CSS. If what you're interested in is specifically like design of websites, you'll want to dive pretty deep into CSS. If you're more interested in just doing web development, like being a software engineer, honestly, CSS is oftentimes like the Achilles heel of software engineers, because it's just like, it's really, there's so much to it, and nobody bothers to learn it in depth. Not nobody. There's certainly engineers who learn CSS well, who are drawn to it. And there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with CSS, and in terms of laying stuff out and formatting it. But
between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, what do you spend the majority of your day in?
almost entirely.
Or you do Ruby on Rails?
Well, I use Ruby on Rails, sure. So I do some. It depends on what kind of story I'm working on. Usually, I'm working on in JavaScript on the front end, and working with Ruby on Rails for the back end. So yeah, so the code that lives on the server is written in Ruby. The code that gets ported to the browser is written in JavaScript.
Cool. Let me find another question. Okay, so this was in forms where this question came up.
Okay.
What are the significance of T head and T body? And why are they
T head
needed?
and T body. I think I know what I'm going to look it up just to make sure, but I think I know what those elements are. I think they have to do with tables. T head tag. Yeah, they have to do with tables. So I'm going to copy this table in. Let's copy a table in here. Okay. We'll save this, and we will reload. Okay, so this creates a little table, right? Kind of, it's a different way to lay out the kind of thing you would see on a spreadsheet. We have the T body, and this tends to be the T body tends to be like the bulk of the table, all the data entry to it. T headers tends to be the first row of the table, and the default. You can see the default styling makes this bold as opposed to not bold. But that way you can create a table, and you can apply different CSS to the head versus the body versus the foot. So for instance, again, if we go up here, we can go T head. Let's make the border bottom, maybe. It'll make it 1 pixel, solid, and black. And we'll save that, reload it. And nothing happened because I don't know what I'm doing. Huh. Oh, I know. T-head. Wait, maybe I'd do it like that. T-head, T-R. Nope. T-head, T-H. There we go. Okay. So what happened was T-head itself is here. And inside the T-head is a T-R. And inside a T-R is a T-H. And I guess the TH, in a sense, kind of sits on top of the T header. So when I tried to change the border to the border of a T header to be this one pixel solid black, it was still in back of these other things. Maybe, I don't know. This is an example of CSS of like like when coders are used to, like, I tell the computer to do something, it does it exactly how I say. And CSS seems to resist that somehow. You think you're telling it to do something very clear. I want a bottom border on the T head, but it's like, no, that doesn't work. Sorry. But this kind of notation means for THs, which are inside T heads, give it this style.
Okay. Let's see. So that part up where you're with the T head, where you're just typing, that is CSS?
Correct. Now, normally we don't do this anymore. This is sort of a relic of older times when you put the style right in the actual page. Instead, let me see if I can. Again, I'm gonna have to look up stuff because I just, CSS link.
It starts CSS.
I don't write this very often. Styling links. How does it work? No, that's a different thing. I think it's a meta. I really don't remember. CSS external. Basically, you have to get really good at Googling things to become a. That is the number one priority of being a developer, is to Google something. Okay, so we could have this style like this. We could also, what we're more likely to do is do this. We have a link, and we call this a style sheet. I don't know what rel stands for. We can look it up. And then href means where we find this style sheet, and let's just call it style CSS. And then we close that tag and save it. Now, what this means is this HTML file, when it loads, it will bring along with it this style. It'll make a request to say, hey, I want the style sheet as well. Now, we haven't made the style sheet yet, but we can. So let's create a style sheet with the same name. And then we're going to, let's take this style that we created. We'll cut it out here. And we'll move it to the style sheet. And save this, and it should be the same. Yeah. So HTML, one thing about HTML is it loads in order. So like when this file is downloaded by your browser, the browser starts on line 1 and starts working its way through the page, right? And so when it hits line 7, it goes out and retrieves this style sheet along with it, and brings it in. And so until it has this, for a brief, one of the reasons to get it first is so that there isn't if there's a delay in pulling the style sheet in, and you'll see this sometimes with websites, you'll pull a website in and it will look really basic like this. All the content will kind of all be there, but it'll all be just real basic text on a white background. And that's because the style sheet hasn't been brought in yet, or somehow the style sheet failed to load. Anyway, so you usually want your style sheet to load before your stuff, so you put it up here. I don't know what would happen if you tried to put it down in the body somewhere, but generally it's always in the head. Any other questions, or you want to just sort of freeform it?
Um, oh, here's a good one. When creating inputs for forms, what is the difference between name and ID?
Right. Okay. So let's get some form. HTML form example. How about that? All right. Cool. Grab a form here. Let's replace our awesome paragraph with a form. Okay. So this form here, let's see if I can get a little bit more of the screen. So we have ID and we have name. I see. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is IDs are used everywhere. Like we can put IDs on any kind of element, and you'll often see IDs throughout a document. One thing about IDs, the first thing to know is they need to be unique. They have to be unique. And they're used to identify specific elements. So this label, what this is telling the browser is that this label here, first name, is for this ID. And this is separate from name. You know, this name could be something else. But what it's used for is for linking this to this. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
It's also used in JavaScript, like if you wanted to do something very specific to this label or this input here. Like for instance, one thing that forms will do with JavaScript, a common thing is like as you type in something, JavaScript is working in the background to validate that what you're writing in is correct. So like if you try to write, you know, it might be anything from making sure you're not writing, you know, vile language into it, or it could be, you know, if it's an email form and you're looking for, you know, the email address, you know, it will validate, and you go to the next. At the point when you tab out of it, it will look at your email address, try to determine if that's a valid format for an email address, and do something with it. In any case, the way that JavaScript typically finds elements, it can find elements in a lot of different ways, but oftentimes the best way is to find it via its ID if it exists. The other reason you have the ID, though, is I think it's the point. I don't know exactly why HTML really wants to know this label belongs to this input. I think there's reasons, but I'm not sure why. Now, the name and value, these tend to be the things when you submit the form. What happens is when you submit a form, usually there's something in the form tag. There's an attribute that's like form 4 or something. Form attributes. Let's look at that. Yeah. So like for instance, let's do this one. Okay. Save this, reload it. Okay, let's get rid of the table. So we have this this form, same thing, John Doe, and a submit button. Now notice up in the top of the form action here, it says form 4 and then action underscore page PHP. So what it's saying is when you hit the submit button, it will send the values that are in these inputs to action underscore page.php. I wonder if you'll be able to see this. Let's see if we'll move this over. So I'm going to hit submit, and look what happens. It tries to send it. There is no action page.php, but it tries to send it to action page.php, and it puts f name equals John and L name equals Doe. Now, if we didn't know what was going on here, we could just hypothesize, well, maybe it's sending the ID, maybe it's sending the name, I don't know. I think it's sending the name, though, and we can test this by saying first name and last name. Save this. Let's go back. Reload. And we'll submit again. And there you go. First name equals John, last name equals Doe. So,
Okay.
so the name part is what's submitted along with the value.
Okay, that makes sense. So the whole time I was just like, every single time the ID is the same as the name.
You got to do the redundant. And that's a convention that I think a lot of people do. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's anything. This wouldn't change much if you did this. Like, the form would still function in the exact same way. But there may be reasons why that's a bad idea. I don't know off the top of my head. One thing about HTML is it's very forgiving. Like, you can do dumbass stuff in your HTML, and the page will still load. You can't do that with JavaScript. You do dumbass stuff in JavaScript, and it just breaks and stops running. But HTML is pretty forgiving. You can do things in it, like you can make up form elements, or you can make up elements like, this is a I don't know, banner. I don't think that's a real element. Right there. Save it, reload, and it still shows up. It doesn't know what a banner is, and it's not good to make up your own HTML elements, but it doesn't break anything either. In fact, I wonder if even you could add style in a browser. Like this, it's not supposed to do this, or it's not required to do this. Let's see, color. Let's give it a border. A pink border, that's always fun. 1 pixel, pink, solid. Yeah, it even works. The CSS knows how to find it. So even though you've made up this thing called a banner, and let's call it something else. Foo is a common made up term that people use to test things. Okay, we have to put the style there too. Foo. And it works. Notice that it's not highlighted in the same way. I don't know if you can tell, the color is slightly different. And I think that's telling you, that's VS Code is recognizing, hey, you made this shit up. This doesn't make any sense. But it still works.
Nice.
Now, the thing that people typically use, I'm sure you'll see this in the next couple of chapters of the thing you're learning, is have you run into classes yet?
Classes? Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's get some lorem ipsum again. Let's change the style back down to 1.5 m. Lorem ipsum generator. All right. Let's get a few paragraphs here. All right. So I got my lorem ipsum. Let's see. Do this. Yeah. Okay, so I got my paragraphs of lorem ipsum, right? If I just reload this, first of all, I gotta save it first. If I just reload this, notice it creates one huge paragraph. It doesn't differentiate between these paragraphs. Why do you think that is?
Because you haven't blocked them off with paragraphs, right?
Yeah. It does. It's very. You need to actually say that this is a paragraph for it to know that it's a paragraph. Let's do that. Cool. So that's their first paragraph. We're going to have P and a P. All right, and then I'm going to copy these 2 lines. So we have all these paragraphs. We're building a blog app, or we're just making a dumb website that's just HTML and CSS, and it's kind of a blog, right? We're just putting some information up. Is that it? Yeah, okay. I can close this off. Save. So now it's in paragraphs. Notice also the blue type is happening, which we're going to get rid of. So let's get rid of the blue. And maybe what we wanted to do, actually, let's make one more, let's make this first paragraph smaller. Maybe that's all it is in the first paragraph. So typically, let's say this is like a news article, and typically the first, oh, that's not the first paragraph. Oftentimes in like a magazine article, the first paragraph is kind of like an expanded headline. It's like a little bit more than a headline to kind of get you to read the rest of the article, right? It's like a teaser. So let's give this first paragraph a class of teaser. And then we go over here and we create a new selector, or a new CSS selector. Or I don't know if they're called CSS selectors or HTML selectors. I think they're called CSS selectors. But this right here is a selector. It's saying I want to select all H1s. This one is saying I want to select all THs that are inside T heads. And we're going to create another one that's just for a class. Now, how do you signify a class? You put a period and then the name of the class. Okay? And then let's make the font size. Normally, this font size is probably 1M. So like this EM. Actually, let's do it like this. We'll give a font size for paragraphs. Let's say font size is 12 pixels, okay? And then for the teaser, we want the font size to be 16 pixels, and we want the font weight to be bold. Now if we do this, you'll notice the first paragraph is changed, but all the paragraphs after it aren't. And that's because we applied this class to it. And you can apply multiple classes. You can say, we'll have a class called danger, right? And that class, danger, means you use the color red. And so now you've applied 2 classes to this.
What if the classes conflict? Like, what if danger's font size is 60 pixels?
Oh, there are dissertations about that. So let's see. Let's apply both and see what happens. Font size 20 pixel. See if that one works. It does. So why do you think this one works? It goes with danger.
Because it reads it line by line, so that it overrides.
Yeah, because this one came second, so it overrides it. But what if you did this? Let's do P teaser. Now, what you think that might be any different?
P dot teaser.
Mm-hmm. What do you think P dot teaser means first?
I would assume the P is for paragraph.
Okay. Yep.
But I don't know what dot teaser does.
So this means...
Is that saying or teasers?
What's that?
Is that saying paragraphs or anything marked teaser, or is it just...
No, it's saying paragraphs that are marked teaser. So this is anything marked teaser This is
Okay.
paragraph smart teaser. So this is a little bit more specific, right? It's not saying wherever you see the class teaser apply this. You're saying only when you see the paragraph
Okay.
with the class teaser. So let's save this and see what happens. And it's back down to its lower. And so
Because
what's
it's more
happening?
specific.
It's more specific. And there's all kinds of rules about specificity, right? So notice that, let's get rid of this 20 pixel here. So one thing we can see here is that the class teaser is more specific than just paragraph, because this is both a paragraph and it's also got the class teaser, but the size is determined by teaser. So classes are more specific than elements. IDs are more specific than classes. And then there's a couple other levels, but those are the three main levels that you have to worry about. Also, they're additive. So you could say teaser. So for instance, you could say teaser is bold, danger is red, and then you could say teaser danger, I think that's how it works, is font size 18 pixel. So like if this were font size 9 pixel, I think that's how it works. Let's see. Yeah, it's 18 pixel. And the reason is this is two classes, is more specific than one class, it's more specific than one class, and it's way more specific than one element. Because this is whenever you see two classes, these two classes together, font size should be 18 pixel. So
Okay.
it's CSS is it's just it's interesting. If you can get good at it, you can do a lot. Like, so when I was in coding boot camp, I didn't feel real confident about my CSS ability. I had done it before, and I was okay with CSS, but I never felt great about it. And I decided that I was going to. There are different tools to help you, and I think one of them is covered in that course. One is called Bootstrap, where you can sort of grab a whole set of style sheets and just apply it to your website, and it automatically makes it look better. And then there's all kinds of classes you can apply that make it look even better than that. So it's all these like pre-made styles for you, right? And I tried to do as much as I could without using anything like that. So I just kind of forced myself to lay out everything, to style everything using vanilla, just plain old CSS, in an effort to learn it. And it was pretty successful, because by the end of boot camp, when it was time to make my resume, I didn't know how to do it in like Word. I was like, forgot how to format in any other way except CSS. It's like, oh, I want to move this over here, and I want this centered, and it was just so much easier to lay it out using HTML and CSS than it was to use a Microsoft Word or something like that.
Yes. Very cool.
All right.
I just
one more
one
question.
last question.
Yes.
The last two things you got me into were Game of the Scene and Hearthstone. Is web development more lucrative than either of those things?
Yes. Wait, what was the it was Hearthstone, and what was the first previous one?
Game of the Scene.
Oh, I don't know. Lifetime. I mean, I've only worked at Benchpress for 2 years. I have not made as much money in 2 years working as a software developer as I've made teaching improv. I'm making considerably more per year. I don't think I ever. I mean, when I was in New York and I was working full time as like the director of the theater, or the teaching program. They had the classes, and I was teaching 4 classes a week. I still think I was earning significantly less than I'm making now. So yeah, it pays better.
Do you still play Hearthstone ever?
I haven't played Hearthstone in a while. No. I stopped playing, and as soon as you haven't played it for like a few weeks or certainly a few months, you suddenly feel like totally out of it. I
Yeah.
watch a lot of StarCraft, but I don't play it very much. So
Oh,
maybe but if you want to play Hearthstone, maybe that's how we should end these things. We should do web dev for a while, and then we should play each other in Hearthstone. You can stomp my ass in Hearthstone because I don't know what I'm doing
you can always
anymore.
do the Tavern Brawls where it's just a pre-made deck.
Well, even if it's pre-made decks, you'll still kick my ass, I'm sure.
Um, oh, I have another get rich quick scheme if you want to hear
Okay.
it, but
Let me
we
stop
have to
sharing the
we have
screen.
yeah we have to
Let's
wait
get.
till we're off screen to do that.
Oh, you want me to stop the stream before you tell me your secret idea to make lots of money?
Yeah, because I mean it's gonna make millions, Kev, millions. But
Okay.
we don't have to do that right now. We don't have to do that right now.
All right. All right. Well, I'm gonna end the stream now,
Oh, okay.
but we can still talk.